Welcome back to Language Access Academy. We are making incredible progress through our AMA medical vocabulary. Today, we are focusing on the letter H. There is a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right in. Starting from the top, a hair follicle is a tiny opening in the skin from which a hair grows. Moving to the mouth, halitosis is the clinical term for bad breath. It is commonly caused by poor oral hygiene or eating certain foods, but if it is persistent, it can be a sign of illness. A hallucination is a perception that occurs when there is actually nothing there to cause it, such as hearing voices when there are none. Down at the feet, a hammer toe is an abnormality in the tendons of the toe that causes the toe to be flexed at all times. The hamstring muscle is located at the back of the thigh. It bends the leg at the knee and moves the leg backward. Hardening of the arteries is simply the common name for arteriosclerosis. Hashimoto's disease is a disease in which the body's immune system attacks cells of the thyroid gland, resulting in a decrease in thyroid hormones. If you get the sniffles in the spring, you might have hay fever, which is the common name for allergic rhinitis. You might see the abbreviation HDL, which we will cover in just a moment when we get to high-density lipoprotein. Let's talk about the cardiovascular system. A heart attack is the common name for a myocardial infarction. Heart block is a disorder of the heart caused by a blockage of the nerve impulses to the heart that regulate the heartbeat. This may lead to dizziness, fainting, or a stroke. Heartburn is a burning sensation experienced in the center of the chest up to the throat. It may be caused by overeating, eating spicy food, or drinking alcohol. Recurrent heartburn may be caused by acid reflux. Heart disease is a common way to refer to coronary heart disease. Heart failure is the inability of the heart to pump blood effectively. During certain intense surgeries, doctors may use a heart-lung machine, which is a machine that takes over the functions of the heart and lungs. Your heart rate is the rate at which the heart pumps blood, measured in the number of heartbeats per minute. A heart valve is the structure at each exit of the 4 chambers of the heart that allows blood to exit, but not to flow back in. Moving to environmental conditions, heat exhaustion includes fatigue, dizziness, and nausea experienced because of overexposure to heat. If not treated, it can result in heat stroke, a life-threatening condition resulting from extreme overexposure to heat, which disrupts the body's system of regulating temperature. A heel spur is an abnormal, often painful outgrowth of bone on the back of the heel. The Heimlich maneuver is a crucial first-aid technique for choking that dislodges an object that is blocking a person's airway. In our immune system, helper T cells, also called CD4 cells, are white blood cells responsible for regulating other cells in the body's immune system. These are the main targets of the AIDS virus. A hemangioma is a purple-red mark on the skin caused by an excess of blood vessels. Now let's look at several terms starting with hema or hemo, which relate to blood. Hemarthrosis is bleeding into and swelling of a joint. Hematemesis is the vomiting of blood. A hematocrit is the percentage of total blood volume that consists of red blood cells, which is determined by laboratory testing. It can be an indicator of disease or injury. A hematoma is an accumulation of blood from a broken blood vessel. Hematuria means blood in the urine, which can be caused by urinary tract disorders, like cysts, tumors, or stones, or by an infection. Hemochromatosis is a genetic disorder in which too much iron is absorbed from food. Hemodialysis is a method used to treat kidney failure in which blood is passed through a machine that purifies it and returns it to the body. Hemoglobin is the pigment in red blood cells that is responsible for carrying oxygen. Hemoglobin bound to oxygen gives blood its red color. Hemoglobinuria means there is hemoglobin in the urine. Hemolysis is the breakdown of red blood cells in the spleen. This is a normal process, but it can cause jaundice and anemia when the red blood cells are broken down too quickly. Hemophilia is an inherited disorder in which a person's blood lacks a certain protein important in forming blood clots, leading to excessive bleeding. A hemorrhage is simply the medical term for bleeding. A hemorrhoid is a bulging vein either at the opening of the anus or just inside the anus, often caused by childbirth or straining during bowel movements. Hemospermia means there is blood in the semen. Hemostasis is the stopping of bleeding by the body's own mechanisms. A hemothorax is an accumulation of blood between the chest wall and the lungs. Next, let's look at terms starting with hepa, which relate to the liver. A hepatectomy is the surgical removal of all or part of the liver. The word hepatic is used to describe something that is related to the liver. Hepatitis is the inflammation of the liver, which may be caused by a viral infection, poisons, or the use of alcohol or other drugs. There are a few distinct forms. Hepatitis A is caused by the hepatitis A virus, and is usually transmitted by contact with contaminated food or water. Hepatitis B is generally more serious than hepatitis A. It is caused by the hepatitis B virus, which is transmitted through sexual contact or contact with infected blood or body fluids. Hepatitis C is caused by the hepatitis C virus, which is also transmitted through sexual contact or contact with infected blood or body fluids. And hepatitis D is a form of hepatitis that only causes symptoms when the individual is already infected with hepatitis B. A hepatoma is a cancerous tumor of the liver, while hepatomegaly refers to the enlargement of the liver. When a genetic trait is passed from parents to children, it is described as hereditary. Hereditary spherocytosis is a genetic disorder in which red blood cells are smaller, rounder, and more fragile than normal, causing hemolytic anemia. Hermaphroditism is a rare condition in which an individual is born with both male and female reproductive organs. A hernia is the bulging of an organ or tissue through a weakened area in the muscle wall. You might hear the term herniated disc, which is another name for a disc prolapse. Herpes encephalitis is brain inflammation caused by a herpes simplex virus that has spread from another part of the body. Herpes simplex itself is an infection by the herpes simplex virus that causes blister-like sores on the face, lips, mouth, or genitals. In rare cases, it can also affect the eyes, fingers, or brain. You might see the term herpes zoster, which we will cover later under its common name, shingles. Heterosexuality is being sexually attracted to members of the opposite sex. A hiatal hernia is a type of hernia in which the stomach bulges up into the chest cavity through an opening in the diaphragm. A hiccup is the involuntary, sudden contraction of the diaphragm along with the closing of the vocal cords, producing that familiar hiccup sound. As mentioned earlier, high-density lipoprotein, or HDL, is a type of protein found in the blood that removes cholesterol from tissues, protecting against heart disease. Hirschsprung's disease is a condition that is present at birth in which nerve cells do not develop in parts of the intestine, causing the intestine to narrow and block the passage of feces. Hirsutism is excessive hair or hair growth in unusual places, especially in women. Histamine is a chemical in some cells of the body that is released during allergic reactions, causing inflammation. It also causes the production of acid in the stomach and the narrowing of the airways. To counter this, you might take an H1 blocker or histamine blocker, a drug that blocks the action of histamine used to treat inflammation. An H2 blocker is a drug used in the treatment of peptic ulcers that blocks histamine from causing acid production in the stomach. Histoplasmosis is a respiratory disease acquired by inhaling the spores of a fungus found in soil, especially where there are bird or bat droppings. You will often see the abbreviation HIV, which we will define fully under human immunodeficiency virus. Hives is the common term for urticaria, an itchy, inflamed rash that results from an allergic reaction. Hodgkin's disease is a cancer of lymphoid tissue found in lymph nodes in the spleen that causes the lymph nodes to enlarge and function improperly. It may cause illness, fever, loss of appetite, and weight loss. Homeostasis is the body's coordinated maintenance of a stable internal environment by regulating things like blood pressure, blood sugar, and body temperature. Homocystinuria is a genetic disorder in which an enzyme deficiency causes a substance called homocysteine to build up in the blood, leading to mental handicap and skeletal abnormalities. Homosexuality is being sexually attracted to members of the same sex. A hookworm is an infestation by a small, round, blood-sucking parasite. It commonly causes a rash on the foot, but it can also cause a cough, pneumonia, and anemia. For birth control, a hormonal implant is the surgical insertion of a small object just under the skin that slowly releases a synthetic hormone. A hormone is a chemical produced by a gland or tissue that is released into the bloodstream to control body functions such as growth and sexual development. Hormone replacement therapy is the use of natural or artificial hormones to treat hormone deficiencies. A hospice is a hospital or an area of a hospital dedicated to treating people who are dying, often of a specific cause. A hot flash is a sudden, temporary feeling of heat and sometimes sweating. It usually occurs as a result of low estrogen levels in women because of menopause or after a hysterectomy. You might see the abbreviation HTLV, which we will cover in a moment. Let's return to human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. This is a retrovirus that attacks helper T cells of the immune system and causes acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS. It is transmitted through sexual intercourse or contact with infected blood. Human T-cell lymphotrophic virus, or HTLV, is a virus similar to HIV that affects the same helper T cells, but usually accompanies adult T-cell leukemia or T-cell lymphomas. During pregnancy, hydramnios is an excess of amniotic fluid in the uterus. A hydrocele is a painless swelling of the scrotum caused by a collection of fluid around the testicle. It commonly occurs in middle-aged men. Hydrocephalus is excess cerebrospinal fluid within the brain, commonly referred to as water on the brain. Hydrocortisone is a corticosteroid drug that is used to treat inflammation and allergies. Hygiene is the practice, maintenance, and study of health. It commonly refers to cleanliness. The hymen is a thin fold of membrane partly closing the opening of the vagina, usually torn during first sexual intercourse or the insertion of a tampon. Hyperactivity is a type of behavior characterized by excessive physical activity, sometimes associated with neurological or psychological causes. Hyperalimentation is a method of providing nutrients by the use of a tube or intravenously to a person who cannot eat food or needs nutrients because of an illness. Now let's look at several terms starting with hyper, which means high, overactive, or excessive. Hyperbilirubinemia is a condition in which there is too much bilirubin, a substance produced when red blood cells are broken down, which can lead to jaundice. Hypercalcemia is a condition marked by abnormally high levels of calcium in the blood. It can lead to disturbance of cell function in the nerves and muscles, and if not treated, can be fatal. Hypercholesterolemia is an abnormally high level of cholesterol in the blood, which can be the result of an inherited disorder or a diet that is high in fat. Hyperglycemia is a condition characterized by abnormally high levels of glucose in the blood, usually as a result of untreated or improperly controlled diabetes mellitus. Hyperlipidemia is a general term for a group of disorders in which lipid levels in the blood are abnormally high, including hypercholesterolemia. Hyperparathyroidism is the overactivity of the parathyroid glands, which increases calcium levels in the blood and decreases calcium in bones, causing osteoporosis. Hyperplasia is the enlargement of an organ or tissue. Hypersensitivity is an excessive response of the body's immune system to a foreign protein. Hypertension is abnormally high blood pressure even when at rest. Hyperthermia is an abnormally high body temperature. Hyperthyroidism is the overactivity of the thyroid gland, causing nervousness, weight loss, fatigue, and diarrhea. Hypertrophy is an increase in the size of an organ due to an increase in the size of its cells. And hyperventilation is abnormally rapid breathing. Hypochondriasis is an abnormal condition in which a person is overly concerned with health and believes that he or she is suffering from a major illness despite medical opinion to the contrary. A hypodermic needle is a thin, hollow needle attached to a syringe, used to inject a medication under the skin into a vein or into a muscle. On the flip side of hyper, we have hypo, meaning low or underactive. Hypoglycemia refers to abnormally low levels of glucose in the blood. Hypoplasia is the failure of a tissue or organ to develop normally. Hypotension is the medical term for abnormally low blood pressure, which results in reduced blood flow to the brain, causing dizziness and fainting. Hypothermia is an abnormally low body temperature. Hypothyroidism is the underactivity of the thyroid gland, causing tiredness, cramps, a slowed heart rate, and possibly weight gain. Hypoventilation is a slower than normal breathing rate. Hypoxemia is a reduced level of oxygen in the blood, while hypoxia is a reduced level of oxygen in tissues. And finally, a few procedures related to women's health. A hysterectomy is the surgical removal of the uterus. Hysteria is a term used to describe symptoms that are caused by mental stress and occur in someone who does not have a mental disorder. Hysterosalpingography is an X-ray examination performed to examine the inside of the uterus and fallopian tubes in order to investigate and possibly treat infertility. And lastly, a hysteroscopy is a method used to examine the inside of the uterus and the cervix using a viewing instrument.